Are you worried about losing your mobility as you get older? If you are, in today's video, I'm going to reveal 5 signs that you might be losing your mobility and how to regain it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties specialist physio here at HT Physio in Farnham. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 worrying signs of mobility loss with age. And I'm going to give you all the resources you need to help you improve your mobility if you find these signs in your life. Now, the things we're going to look for today are common tests that I use in the clinic to assess whether someone has started to lose mobility all over their body. So we're going to be looking at almost every joint in the body, and the areas we're looking at are the areas that most commonly have mobility loss as people get older. So let's have a look at the 5 signs. I want you to try these things at home, and if you're suffering with mobility loss, I'm going to give you what you need to do to fix it too. Now, the first worrying sign of mobility loss with age is failing the knee-to-wall test. And the knee-to-wall test is a great test of ankle mobility. And it actually tests this movement here, which is ankle dorsiflexion, which is where the foot is being brought closer up towards the shin. So we ankle dorsiflex when our knee crosses over our toes, or when we have our foot off the floor and we pull our toes up like this. And you might think, well, that's such a basic movement, surely everyone can do that. And the reality is many people have lost the ability to flex their ankle. So this, if you can look at my foot now, is probably about a normal range of ankle dorsiflexion. I might even be a little bit stiff in this movement because of past ankle injuries, but most people can only get to about plantar grade, which is flat. Okay, so a 90 degrees angle there is not enough for normal function. And the reason we need ankle dorsiflexion is because when we walk, our knee has to pass over our toes in order for a normal gait pattern to happen. We also need our knees to pass over our toes when we squat, and we also need our knees to pass over our toes when we climb stairs safely. So if we don't have that movement, many things in daily life are going to be a problem. So I'll show you the knee-to-wall test. It's very simple to try at home. Basically, what we're going to do is find a wall, and you're going to stand facing the wall like this. I'm going to show you with my left foot so you can see it, and I'll show you a close-up in a minute. The knee-to-wall test is very simple. We want the foot to be flat on the floor, and we're going to keep our foot flat with the heel down and try and bend the knee until we can touch our knee to the wall without the heel lifting up. So what I recommend people do is they start with their toes very, very close to the wall and just see if you can do that first part of the movement. Now, if you can do that movement, then you've got at least a little bit of ankle dorsiflexion, so that's good. But what I like people to have is a 6 centimetre gap between their toes and the wall and still be able to touch their knee to the wall without the heel lifting up. Now you can see on my ankle that that is actually probably my maximum doing it there. And the reason for that is because just like on my right, I've also injured my left ankle, which has actually made this one stiffer. So my maximum is probably about 6 centimetres. And if I went any further back and lifted up, then I would have to lift my heel to touch the wall, which means I've failed the test. So it's a very easy test to do at home. And if you found you failed the test and you don't have that 6 centimetre gap, your heel's popping up off the floor, then I've got a video up here which should show you some nice tips to help you improve your ankle mobility so you don't fail that test anymore. Now, the next worrying sign of mobility loss with age is not being able to squat past 90 degrees. So a squat is a movement like this. It's a knee and a hip movement. So you're bending your knees and your hips at the same time. And if you've got healthy hips and knees, you should be able to squat so that your angle here is beyond 90 degrees. Now, many people can't do this, and they can't do this either because their hips get in the way or their knees are giving them problems as well. But the other reason people fail to squat past 90 degrees is because they're not squatting properly. If you try and squat without sticking your bottom out, you're going to get stuck here. So this doesn't mean you failed the test, it just means you're not doing the movement correctly. So make sure you're hinging at the hips as well and see how low you can get. Now, if this is the first time you're going to try this, I would recommend holding on to something as you do it. For example, a chair like this. So you'd hold on to the back of the chair, you're going to give yourself a bit of space, you're going to hinge at the hips and squat down and see how far you can go. Now, if you find that your knees get in the way of this movement, It could be that you've got some arthritis in your knee, or you've got a problem with your meniscus, or some other kind of injury as well. In any of those cases, it's probably a good idea to work on your knee mobility. And above the video here, I've got a card that you can click on for a great video which will show you how to work on your knee mobility and help you to squat better. So if you have trouble with this test, don't worry, there's things you can do. Click that link up there and it will take you to a video to help you. Now, the next worrying sign of mobility loss with age is trouble putting shoes and socks on. Now, this is a really common problem, and what it signifies to me for most people who have it is they have a problem with their hip. So if you have trouble getting down to either get your shoes on or coming down like this to get your socks on, it means that your hip is lacking mobility. And one of the key things that your hip is probably lacking is rotation. Now, if you can't rotate your hips, then there's a good chance that there's something going on inside the joint, and that's going to make putting shoes and socks on very difficult. The other clue that this is a problem is you have trouble getting in and out of a car. And if you have trouble getting in and out of a car, again, because you need hip rotation to allow you to swivel round as you get in and out, it's going to become difficult. So to test this movement, if you're not sure about whether or not you've got good hip rotation, what we're going to try and get is 90 degrees of total rotation, and we can test it from a sitting position. So you're going to sit comfortably in a chair like this. We're going to test one leg at a time, and all we're going to do is, first of all, keeping our knee level, we're going to turn our leg inwards like this, and we're just going to estimate the angle that we've moved. So we're going to go from here, neutral, to here. And I reckon I've probably got 30 degrees of internal rotation with my leg. I'm not using my hands, I'm just supporting my leg if I need to. So not very much rotation there. But when I go the other way, external rotation, I reckon I've got probably 60 degrees going this way. So if I added up the 30 and the 60 going this way, I get a total of 90 degrees of hip rotation on my right. And what we should be shooting for is 90 degrees. That's a healthy hip. But for people over 50, many people have lost hip rotation, so I'm quite happy if someone has over 70 degrees of hip rotation in the people I treat in the clinic, as long as they don't have many symptoms in their hip. So I'll show you how to test the other side. So again, sitting like this, we're going to rotate inwards. Again, I reckon I've probably got 30 degrees here. And then if we go out the other way, I think again, that's probably 60 degrees. So I'll give myself a total of 90 degrees like that. Now, it's a really easy way to test it. If you have less than 70 degrees of rotation in your hips, you definitely should be working on your hip range of motion, because that rotation loss does tend to get worse with age. And if that's you, I've got a video above which will help you to improve your hip mobility with some stretches and exercises, and it should give you better rotation with time. So click the link up there if that's you. Now, the next worrying sign of mobility loss with age is problems taking your jumpers on and off. And the reason putting jumpers on and off can be a problem for people is because of loss of shoulder mobility. So when we're getting dressed, we often have to reach our arms in like this to get into coats, or reach back like this to get into jumpers, or reach up overhead to put our arms through our sleeves. So all of these things can challenge your shoulder. And if you're anything like me and you've had past shoulder injuries, you know that one of the worst tasks of the day is getting dressed and undressed, because every single item of clothing seems to aggravate shoulder problems in some way. So what we're going to do is we're going to test your shoulders now. If that's you and you find that your movement is a little bit limited, we want to see how much rotation you've got in your shoulder joint. And I'm going to admit to something right now. This is actually a test that I personally fail. And the reason I fail is because I've had past shoulder injuries on both sides, especially my right. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not good enough at doing my exercises, which means they tend to get stiff over time, especially if I have a week off doing my exercises. So I'm going to show you the test now. This will be an interesting one to see how I fail it. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand with our back against a wall like this, and you're going to have your arm up here to about 90 degrees out to the side. Now we're going to test our rotation at the shoulder, same as we tested our hip. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and wind the shoulder back like this to try and get the hand onto the wall. And we're going to look at the total angle from here to here. And you probably can't see from that angle, but I'm about 10, maybe 15 degrees away from the wall this way. So I'm going to give myself 75 degrees of movement there. And then what we're going to try and do is go down this way. This is the movement I'm really bad at, and I can probably only get to there. So it's difficult for me to eyeball it, but I reckon I've got 30 degrees of movement there. So what, 75 plus 30, 105 degrees of total rotation. That's actually quite poor. I would like to get at least 130 degrees of shoulder rotation in that position for a healthy shoulder. Some people can get 180. They can get their hand right back like that and then all the way down like that without cheating like I just did. So if you can get 130 degrees, that's pretty good. If you have less than 130 degrees like me, you need to work on your shoulder mobility, and I've got a great exercise or a set of exercises in the video above which will show you how to regain shoulder mobility if you're one of the many people who struggles with it. Now, the final worrying sign of mobility loss with age is struggling to reach up overhead. And many people find that they can't reach up overhead when they have to get something out of the top cupboard and they can no longer reach it. And it's not that they've shrunk in size, it's just that their skeleton has changed so that they no longer have the mobility to reach up. So this could be a problem with one of two areas. The first area that could be the problem is the shoulder joint, because if you lose the ability to reach up overhead and you can only get to here, then you've lost that last bit of range of motion. But the other area this could be a problem is your thoracic spine, which is your mid-back. And what tends to happen as we get older is some people end up in a kyphosed position. Now, if you look at this position, what this has done is obviously my back is curved, but it's brought my shoulder forward. So now even if I have a full range of shoulder movement, I can still only get to there. And if you look at me straightening up, look how high my arm can go now, and I haven't changed my shoulder, I've just changed my back. So if you lose your thoracic extension, you can't reach up overhead anymore. Now, if you found this is a problem and you can't get things out of the top cupboard, don't worry, because many cases of shoulder and thoracic mobility loss can be improved. I have a good exercise in one of my videos, which is up on the top of your screen now, so you can click on that to help you if you're one of the many people who finds getting things out of the top cupboard difficult. And you can also test this by standing near to a wall and just trying to slide your hand up the wall and seeing how high you can get. Now, if you can get up overhead and you can walk a little bit into the wall just so your nose almost touches without your shoulder becoming too uncomfortable, I would say that is a pass. But if you can't get close to the wall and you feel like this is really straining for your shoulder to be here, then that's a fail and you probably need the video I mentioned before. So I hope those videos help, and if you are suffering with loss of mobility, don't worry, there's often something you can do. So those are the 5 worrying signs of mobility loss with age. I hope you found that video useful. Do drop a comment below and let us know how you got on with the 5 tests. Did you pass all 5 of them? If you did, that's amazing. And if you failed a couple of them, don't worry, because the resources I revealed should help you get back to full mobility. Anyway, if you want to get more from me, you can grab a copy of my book. It's on Amazon using the link below. It's called Thriving Beyond 50. And basically it's going to give you loads of tips and advice on how to improve and maintain mobility over the age of 50. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time in watching these videos, and I'll see you on the next one.